Welcome back to PacWestBigfoot.com. This is David, and I know that me and the Boozer clan were on vacation last week, so this week I'm going to try to get you out in a couple encounter stories to make up for last week, and I also have some interviews coming up. Also wanted to let you know that this month there's going to be 2 different free giveaways. One for a PacWest Bigfoot t-shirt. That's right. As a matter of fact, you guys have been asking me about t-shirts and other swag and whatnot, and so it took a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks to put it all together, but over at PacWestBigfoot.com, you can find your PacWest Bigfoot t-shirts and coffee mugs, and I've got other things there for you. So there you are, and thank you guys already. There were so many of you that came in and got your t-shirts. Thank you so very much. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be stopping the donation for the show and replacing that with just you get some swag that helps donate to everything here and keeps this stuff going. Also, this month's giveaway is not just going to be the t-shirts, but it's going to be an awesome book for young adults and children called The Young Researcher's Guide to Bigfoot by Gail Beatty and Deborah Ray. So, 2 different giveaways this month, guys. If you don't know where to go, first and foremost, to get your t-shirts, it's at mypacwestbigfoot.com. And if you want to take the my off there and just go to pacwestbigfoot.com, you can join the clan there for the free monthly giveaways, and I do that every month. So let's get into this now. I'm going to try to give you guys 2 encounter stories this week. I'm working really hard to get them done and get them out here for you because I was gone last week. So there you are. And once again, happy 4th of July. And when you get home this evening, after all the fireworks are over, think about the history of this glorious country of ours. Okay? Okay. Clear throat. Sip of Sasquatch coffee. And we're good to go. All right. Oh, and one more thing. Don't forget, Friday, I'm going to do something live on YouTube. We're going to get on there in the morning again. All right. NorCal surfer watches Bigfoot. Watch her from the beach. I am a surfer from Northern California, and I'm also a teacher at a private school, so I hope you do not mind keeping my name out of my encounter. But one day while surfing, I watched Bigfoot watch me as he collected what I believe to be clams along the beach. Sounds crazy, I know, but it really happens. And as a teacher in a private middle school in NorCal, I am now a researcher of this thing on the down low, of course. Here's what happened that day. The shark was actually more scary. My husband and I are avid surfers. We have been since we met in Florida while in college and continue the passion here in Northern California. I have to say real quick that it was the second craziest moment in my life. The other being the day my husband practically had a heart attack when we both watched as a great white shark circled me, and then as I watched it glide right below my board one day. I could have touched the thing if I wanted to. I didn't though, and it swam off. Personally, I was more scared at that moment than when I saw a Bigfoot watching me from the beach one morning. We love to surf, as I said, and usually we hit the waves early in the morning before school starts, and once again after dinner before the sun sets completely. It was early in the morning when the second craziest event in my life would happen, and just so you know, there was a little scary part to all of this. Well, 2 scary parts to it. Morning, sicko. Private school finals can be a little different than that of public schools. Trust me, I've worked with both. The finals actually lasted a week and a half at the private school my husband and I currently teach at, and we were working there at the time of this particular incident. I decided to get an extra early start that morning and try to get in a session or 2 of surfing before the next grueling week and a half started. Fortunately for my husband, he'd be using a substitute in his place, as for the 3rd day in a row he was still feeling horrible from a really bad cold and what seemed to be a flu. Fortunately, I was apparently immune to the virus that was giving him a break from the first day or 2 of finals. He did say he was a little nervous for me surfing alone that early in the morning. And this incident happened not too long after the shark incident, you see. However, you are never really alone out there. Eventually, someone will show up and get some surfing in. I never thought, however, that I would be there early enough to see something like that. or that something would be, well, a monster of something. Anyways, he was the lucky one. No finals for him for sure, I remember thinking. I headed out early, and I mean early. The sun was not even up as I started the car. The trip to the beach was about 7 miles away, basically in town, sort of, not too far away from the school. Of course, I would stop for a chai latte first, then hit the beach as the sun started to peek over the horizon. Like I said, the beach we usually hit is just inside of town, right inside the city limits at least. However, this is Northern California, home of giant trees, giant waves, and apparently giant monsters of the forest, so the wilds and wildlife are always around. The beach actually sits about 75 feet down the side of a cliff, with only one way to get to it. Stairs. Lots of stairs. Well, it was not actually all cliff, but to you and I it is. I arrived at the parking lot above the beach just as the sun was coming up. There were no other surfers that morning. Well, not for about an hour or so at least. I got out, got my board and suit on, and headed out. The sound of the waves. What was that? It was weird, but above the sound of the waves, I swear I kept hearing whistling, like someone was whistling off in the distance before I even took one step down the stairs. I cannot be sure, as the wind was a little harder that morning than the day before, so it could have been anything, I thought, or simply nothing at all. Either way, as I walked slowly down the stairs, I swear I heard at least 4 distinct whistles within seconds, and now that I know more about the subject of Bigfoot, well, they were whistles that I heard, and it was coming from a Bigfoot. By the time I had almost reached the last flight of stairs, the sun was literally peeking over the horizon, barely. I could see around myself quite a bit better, even to the beach below. I stopped for a minute on the last landing and looked around just in case I could see if someone was really making the whistle sounds. Not a soul but mine was out there at the time, at least that I could see. Then again, the cliffs, or really steep hillsides, were covered with trees and brush, not to mention who would be in them anyways. They were rather treacherous for anyone to walk along. I finished the last bit of stairs, sat my backpack down, and finished getting myself ready for a session. It was going to be a nice morning, actually. The Pacific Northwest, in the Pacific Northwest, and it truly was a beautiful day, I remember, regardless of the encounter. I jumped in the water, and even with a 4.3mm suit and a 3mm for the boots, well, the rush of cold can catch you off guard every time. But after a few seconds or so, I was fine and paddling out about 75 yards, I remember. The waves were nice that day. Then again, the wind was harder and the sun was just appearing now visibly along the edge of the world. I caught my first wave, which I actually took all the way in. Felt great as usual. As I grabbed up my board again, from the north, I could hear a faint whistle. I stopped, looked around again, and nothing. Nobody. I shrugged it off as the wind hitting something or creating the sound and went back to paddling out in the surf again. I got out to my usual spot and sat there, like a good surfer, waiting for the next perfect wave. The beach walker. I got two more little waves that were still perfect enough and was sitting there when I finally noticed some movement on the beach. From the water you can see more beach and better, especially when you're floating up and down again and again. Even from 75 yards out, I had a clear view of the whole beach, which stretched about 150 yards from cliff to cliff. With the sunshine still bringing on the morning, I could see a solid, dark, human-like figure with a real weird gait walk onto the beach from a group of trees near the cliff on the north side of the beach. It was a real weird walk, and the fact this person was all one color made me almost forget where I was for a moment. That wasn't until a wave almost knocked me over. I gathered myself together and kept my eyes on this person as they still walked slowly out onto the beach. They stopped for a moment and looked up the direction of the stairs, then went back to walking in their weird fashion. I decided to get an even better look at this person. For some reason, I just found myself feeling intrigued and, well, a little weirded out, I suppose. I paddled closer to the shore, just to where I could almost feel some rock below my feet. I must have been about 45 yards away from the shoreline when I could see this thing plain as day. It was not a person after all. It was, and I could tell from old photos in the film we've all seen, a Bigfoot. Little bunny Fufu. It was covered in hair, and it was now taking shorter strides while circling around in the sand. It was tall, at least 7 plus feet tall, and I could be wrong about that, I guess. I am not a science teacher. It was covered in a thick black coat of hair. Not quite fur, it was hair. The face, from what I could see, looked almost human, but not quite. The nose was wider, flatter, and I could barely notice a mouth at all until it opened it. Its skin or complexion seemed rather dark as well, like a charcoal color. It suddenly came to a stop, squatted down, which made it as tall as me finally, and it stuck its hands in the sand, digging away. It pulled out what I assumed to be a clam and used its gigantic white teeth to open it. It pulled out the clam and ate it, and then repeated the process with another. However, the weirdest thing was the fact that before it tossed the shells away, it would hit its head lightly with the shell before it did. Today I still can't find no rhyme or reason for that behavior, other than it being some weird thing a younger Bigfoot might do, I suppose. Its body was human-like I said, but there were some oddities about it, like shorter lower legs, and no neck whatsoever. Okay, maybe a little bit of one, but I cannot be sure about that today. I don't remember one. I see you. I found myself being pulled further from the beach as I was watching this Bigfoot collect and eat clams. I decided I could not go in just yet. I found myself a little afraid of this massive creature, seeing how it was, in fact, an unknown animal to me, and well, most people. Who knows if clams is where its menu ended. It must have been the movement I made, but this thing stopped immediately, its hunt for clams, and stood up quickly. It was now looking right at me. I got a sense that I surprised it, yet it did not move. It just stood there, staring at me, and swaying left to right. I got up on my knees on the board and started paddling towards the shore to get a closer look. Something told me I was safe out here on the water. As I paddled, it cocked its head sideways all of a sudden, as if it was trying to understand what I was doing out here. I believe they are highly intelligent. They can learn certain things, and I think this particular Bigfoot had never seen a surfer or a person floating on something in the water before. I got to where I was comfortable enough, about 30 yards out from the shoreline. This Bigfoot then made a whistle sound, the same one I heard earlier. The scary part of that, however, was the fact there came a whistle back from the north side of the beach further up the cliff. There was more than one of these things out here, and I suddenly became rather nervous. How was I going to get out of the water, get my stuff, and get to the car? I was finally getting cold, and that was not good. Go home. Getting cold in the Pacific Ocean is not a good thing, and I started to shiver, and the time was getting late. My stuff was about 30 yards on the south side of this thing, so I figured if I paddled over there and slowly got out of the water, it might leave and head to its home or towards the other Bigfoot I could not see along the cliffs. I made my way to the beach slowly, and the whole time neither of us stopped gazing at each other. By the time I almost reached the beach, I could see that there was some whites in his eyes beneath the heavy brow line. I decided to get out of the water, so I stood up. When I almost reached the shore, grabbed my board, and took a couple steps towards the beach. Pop! It was loud, but I thought I heard a gun go off, and so did that Bigfoot. Come to find out a couple minutes later, it was the sound of a familiar VW van driven by an old-time surfer that pulled up top in the parking lot. But, like me, the loudness of the sound must have scared the Bigfoot as well. It was gone in just a few seconds. With massive strides, it disappeared up the cliff and into the darkness of the trees and bush. I quickly ran over and noticed a few footprints, but most were being washed out by the incoming tide. I wish I had my phone on me at the time, but it was up in the car, and I was not feeling comfortable enough to go up there, get it, and come back. If you've ever seen one of these things, you know what I mean. You get it. Test, test, test. I believe it was a young Bigfoot. Not sure why I believe that, but it's just a feeling I have had since that day. Maybe it was just the way this thing acted with me. It never seemed to give me any threatening displays, and even when it started swaying back and forth, which it did again as I stepped up towards the beach before the backfire went off. I was scared, however, and being an unknown wild animal, well, you'd be too if you saw this thing, like I said. I went to work that morning, but was almost tardy myself as I called my husband and told him everything. And since then, we've been starting a side hobby, if you will, of searching for Bigfoot. Of course, we still love surfing more, but we do go camping in other surfing spots along the NorCal coastline, and while we are there, we keep our eyes open. I'm not sure I wish to see another one, but if I do, I think I would probably prefer to be in the water again if I do. Thanks, Amy and Jim.